side with a couple bolts. Do the same for the other side, and when they are secured in place with a few hand-tightened bolts, clean off the intake manifold surfaces of both heads. Go to your gasket set and get the new intake manifold gaskets. Be sure to check them for indications on which way to install them. To hold the intake gaskets in place, lay them on the head and line up the holes in the gasket with the threaded holes in the head. Then tape them in place so they don't slide down. Carefully lay the intake manifold in place on the gaskets and thread some bolts into all four corners.
We need to make this check because the decks of the block were cut level and the bolt holes of the manifold may not line up. If they don't, the bolt holes in the manifold will have to be filed or drilled out a little bit larger so that the manifold bolts will be able to slip into their threads in the cylinder head. Now that the manifold is in, we're going to slip in the distributor. First, take a look at the drive rod for the oil pump. Occasionally, when the motor is rotated upside down, the oil pump drive rod won't seat right. Just spin it by hand until it drops into place. Now the distributor can go in. If it doesn't drop flush with the manifold or the block surface, we're going to have to look at where the distributor gear meets the oil pump drive rod.
The gear in the camshaft drives the gear on the distributor and makes it spin. The oil pump rod interlocks with the bottom of the distributor, which in turn drives the oil pump. If the distributor won't drop down, it's because the slot in the distributor isn't lining up with the oil pump rod. With no oil pan in place, you just spin the oil pump rod until everything lines up, and the distributor will drop in place. It should be flush with the block or intake surface. Later on in the final install, we'll show you another method to do this because the oil pan will be in the way. Now let's take a look at the rest of the tin parts.
First, sit the valve covers on without their gaskets. Make sure that they're flat all the way around and that there's no interference for them to seat in place. Now grab your valve cover gaskets and make sure that they're going to fit as well with the valve cover installed. Then try the timing cover to make sure that nothing got bent too badly when you pried it off. Considering that we already checked the oil pan, that should take care of the fit of all the covers for the engine. If everything we've done so far checks out, take it all apart. You'll want to make sure that your valve train parts all make it back to their spots in the organizer tray and that the gaskets go back into their packages so that they can stay clean. The pistons can go back in their tray and any bolts that you pull should go back to their homes as well in the bins. Once the crank is out, we like to wipe off our main bearings and put them in a bin away from any dust that could collect on them. The same goes for the rod bearings. Of course, use extreme caution while you're pulling the cam. You don't want to scratch up your nice bearings. All that's left to get this